So good evening everyone, and welcome to CBM, and welcome to this evening on the Heart Sutra. In fact, we're going to be covering the Heart Sutra over 2 evenings, so this evening and next Thursday again. And each of those evenings is 2 hours long, and we're going to have a little 15-minute break in the middle. And in these sessions we're going to look at the theory behind the Heart Sutra, but we're also going to do a little bit of meditation as well, so get a little bit of experience about what the Heart Sutra is all about. Also, I like to be quite interactive in my classes, so at any time, if you're not sure about what I'm talking about, then please ask questions. So I very much encourage that. And just before I start, then make sure you're switched off the mobile phones, because it's a bit embarrassing, particularly in the middle of a meditation, your phone is sort of going off, so just switch those off. Okay, you should all have a copy of the Heart Sutra there, and we're going to be going through that. So we'll start by having a look at the title here. It says the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So first, a sutra, of course, is the words of a Buddha. And the various teachings of the Buddha, the various sutras of the Buddha, were written down historically in 2 languages. Were written down in Pali and Sanskrit. And the sutras that are written down in the Pali language form the basis of the modern day Buddhist traditions, which are referred to as the Theravada traditions. And the Theravada traditions include things like Sri Lankan Buddhism, Thai, Burmese, Cambodia, Laos, through Southeast Asia. And the sutras written down in the Sanskrit language form the basis of what's called now the Mahayana Buddhist traditions. And the Mahayana traditions now include Chinese Buddhism, Zen, Korean, Vietnamese, and of course Tibetan Buddhism. Now, within the Pali tradition, the Theravada tradition, the goal of the spiritual practice is to achieve personal liberation from suffering. And that goal is called, often referred to as nirvana. And in all Buddhist traditions, it's asserted that the underlying reason why we have problems and suffering is because of our fundamental ignorance, our misunderstanding of the nature of reality. And generally in the Pali traditions, the Theravada traditions, they say that the fundamental ignorance that is the root of all of our problems and suffering is that we overinflate a sense of me. We believe the me is more solid than we really are. And so this is what's called grasping onto a self. So in the Theravada traditions, then the wisdom that we need to realize in order to achieve this goal of liberation from suffering, the goal of nirvana, is this wisdom of no self. So they would say that the ignorance that we're suffering from is a false sense of me. We overinflate the sense of me. We grasp onto this, what's called self. And that's what we need to realize, that we do not exist in this overinflated way. So therefore, in the Pali traditions, when they talk about wisdom practice, and another name for wisdom practice is vipassana, vipassana just means insight, is to gain the realization of this no self. Whereas in the Sanskrit traditions, which are the basis of the Mahayana traditions, the goal of the spiritual path is enlightenment. And enlightenment is not simply to liberate ourselves from suffering, but to achieve the state of full awakening so that we can help to liberate everyone else from suffering as well. And here in the Mahayana traditions, what is stopping us from achieving enlightenment, the fundamental ignorance, is that we believe that there is an independent me here and an independent objective world out there. So this is the ignorance that is said to be the root of all of our suffering within the Sanskrit tradition. So the wisdom we need to develop to achieve enlightenment is what's called the wisdom of emptiness. The wisdom of emptiness, and emptiness in Sanskrit is shunyata. So here we are to realize that there is no independent me, no independent objective world. And this is what emptiness is meaning. And so here the Heart Sutra, as we see, it's part of the Sanskrit tradition, the Mahayana tradition. So here the Heart Sutra is talking about how to cultivate this wisdom here, this wisdom of emptiness. So that's what we're going to be looking at in the Heart Sutra. So just to have a look at the rest of the title, and we see in the title, it says the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, and then in brackets underneath, we have the original Sanskrit title, which says Arya Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. So here then we see the word in the middle, Prajna Paramita. Prajna is Sanskrit meaning wisdom, and Paramita means perfection. So Prajna Paramita is the perfection of wisdom. So here, the perfection of wisdom is to realize this emptiness, to realize there's no independent me, no independent objective world. And then after Prajna Paramita, we see the word Hridaya. Hridaya means heart or essence. So that's what's been translated here as heart, as in Heart Sutra. But here the word heart doesn't mean some sort of emotion. It means essence, the heart of the matter, the essence. So this Heart Sutra, it contains the essence of all of the perfection of wisdom teachings in the Sanskrit tradition. So there are many sutras in Sanskrit teaching or talking about emptiness. But the Heart Sutra, the one we're looking at, is the essence of all of those, meaning that the Heart Sutra is the condensed version of all of the perfection of wisdom teachings, meaning in very few words, we have the essence of all of the perfection of wisdom teachings on emptiness. And then we see here the word Arya Bhagavati. Bhagavati is the feminine of Bhagavan. And Bhagavan is just a name, another word for Buddha, someone who's fully enlightened. And Arya is referring to someone who has had a direct realization of emptiness, who has already directly realized nature of reality. But here what we see in the title is we see the feminine version. Bhagavan is male and Bhagavati, the Ti, is feminine. And in Buddhism, wisdom is considered to be feminine, because in the Buddhist spiritual path, we can talk about the two aspects of wisdom and compassion. And actually, intuitively, you may think compassion is more feminine, maybe wisdom more masculine. But actually in Buddhism, it's the opposite. Wisdom is considered to be feminine and compassion masculine. And the reason that wisdom is considered to be feminine in Buddhism is that it's through wisdom that wisdom gives birth to nirvana and enlightenment. Wisdom gives birth to these Arya beings. So that's why wisdom is considered feminine. So this is what we see in the title here, Arya Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. So this sutra, teaching of the Buddha, is teaching this perfection of wisdom, this wisdom of emptiness, that nothing exists independently. There's no independent me, no independent objective world. And this sutra contains these teachings in very few words. So that's basically the title. Any questions so far? Anything not clear what we're going to be looking at? Okay. What we'll do now, and it's very traditional, is that in many of the Mahayana traditions, the Heart Sutra is plays a very important role, so much so that in many traditions you will find that people recite the Heart Sutra on a daily basis. And often, whenever there's a teaching being given, particularly if the teaching is about wisdom, then as a sort of auspicious sign at the beginning of the teaching, then you would read or recite the Heart Sutra. So before we look at the actual Heart Sutra, I thought it might be nice if we read the Heart Sutra together. So if you'd like to have that handy. And we'll just read through the Heart Sutra together as a starting point. The Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, and we'll read the Sanskrit title as well. It's auspicious to read the Sanskrit title. Arya Bhagavati Prashnaparamita Hridaya Sutra. Thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's mountain in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration of the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on the realm of the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisvaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commanded the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Venkateshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along the world with gods, humans, Suras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. Okay, let's see if we can make some sense of all of that. What we see here in this translation of the Heart Sutra is we see a lot of outlines sort of embedded in. Of course, the outlines were not in the original sutra, but these outlines were added at a later time here to sort of more easily see the structure of the Heart Sutra, how the different elements of the Heart Sutra fit together. And so it's this structure that we're going to be following in trying to understand the Heart Sutra. And what we see in the first two outlines here at the top is that the first two paragraphs are what's called the prologue. The prologue is the setting of the sutra. And so very commonly at the beginning of any sutra, you'll find the setting, like where it took place, who was present, and so forth. And so here with the prologue is sort of divided into two parts, what's called common prologue and uncommon prologue. The common prologue is something in common to all the other sutras, is just basically describing a couple of basic elements of the sutra, like when it took place, who the teacher was, where it took place, and who was present. So this is what we find in the first paragraph. It said, "Thus did I hear at one time." And this is basically saying that this teaching occurred on one occasion. The Buddha only gave this on one occasion. And then it says the Bhagavan. The Bhagavan again here, the Bhagavan is another word for Buddha. So of course, the Buddha here is Buddha Shakyamuni. So the Buddha himself was present, of course. And it says, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's mountain in Rajgir. So Rajgir is a town in now in modern day Bihar in India. And Rajgir literally means the palace of the king. So Rajgir at the time of the Buddha was a place that was actually where the king lived, the king of the whole region. And just outside Rajgir, there's a small hill here called Massive Vulture's Mountain, sometimes called Vulture's Peak. And it's one of the very famous Buddhist pilgrimage sites in India. So of course you can go there now and visit Vulture's Peak and see the place where the Buddha actually gave this teaching. So that was where the teaching took place, on this little hill outside Rajgir. Now it's about a 2-hour drive from Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha, that's the place where the Buddha achieved enlightenment. And it said here, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. So there was a lot of people present, particularly a lot of monks. And here the word monks is really referring to those who are following the path to nirvana. So whereas bodhisattvas here, so there were also bodhisattvas present, and a bodhisattva is someone who is following the path to enlightenment. Of course, we're not saying that all monks only follow the path to nirvana, but here in this setting, that's what this word is referring to, those who are following the path to personal liberation. So that's who's present. The Buddha was present. It was on this little hill, Vulture's Peak outside Rajgir, and there's a lot of monks and a lot of bodhisattvas present. And then in the next paragraph, the uncommon prologue is describing what is unique to this sutra. What is the unique setting of this sutra? And it says here, at that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. So you'll often find in these sorts of sutras, the word profound is a word for emptiness. So because emptiness is something very profound, very difficult to realize. So when it says profound perception here, we're talking about perceiving the profound, and the profound is emptiness. So here we're talking about the fact that the Buddha was absorbed in realizing emptiness, realizing the nature of reality. So that's, the Buddha was sitting there and he was realizing emptiness, the nature of reality. And then it says, also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. So Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit word. In Tibetan, it's Chenrezig, considered to be the Buddha of compassion. But here it's calling Avalokiteshvara a Bodhisattva. So a Bodhisattva, of course, is someone who's aspiring to enlightenment, aspiring to become a Buddha. So even though Avalokiteshvara is the Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig, here he is appearing as a Bodhisattva for the benefit of the audience. He's also being called here a Mahasattva. Mahasattva, Maha means great, Sattva means courage or strength. So a Mahasattva is someone who has great courage or strength. And here it really means someone who has great courage or strength working to help liberate everyone else from suffering. So Avalokiteshvara is also present, and it says here he looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom. So the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, of course, is the practice of emptiness, the practice of realizing nothing exists independently. So Avalokiteshvara was also realizing emptiness. And it says here, and he beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. The 5 aggregates is something that comes up a lot in these teachings. And here the 5 aggregates is a way of presenting the basis of a person. A person has, if we want to keep it simple, a person has 2 parts. We have a body, we have a mind. In the 5 aggregates presentation, the first of the 5 aggregates, as we're going to shortly see, is called the form aggregate. And the form aggregate, with respect to the person, of course, is referring to the body. The other 4 aggregates is collectively the mind. So the mind has been divided into 4 parts, and they are the other 4 aggregates. So when we see here the 5 aggregates, we're talking about the body and the mind of a person. So here he's saying that he beheld those 5 aggregates, i.e. the body and the mind, also as empty of inherent nature. So empty of inherent nature is what we're talking about, emptiness here. So inherent nature is another way of saying things are empty of independent existence. They have no inherent nature. So it's saying here that the body and mind are also empty of inherent nature. So what that is implying is not just the person is empty of inherent nature, but also the basis of the person, the body and the mind, is also empty of inherent nature, i.e. not independently existent. So also Avalokiteshvara was realizing that the person does not independently exist, the body doesn't independently exist, the mind doesn't independently exist. So this is the setting now. Any questions about the setting? Anything not clear about that? So we have the Buddha sitting there realizing emptiness. We have also Avalokiteshvara realizing emptiness. And then if we go to the next part, the actual subject matter of the sutra, we have in the next paragraph, another person is being introduced, is Shariputra. It says here, then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. So who is Shariputra? I don't know if we have a picture here. Often when you see a picture of the Buddha, you'll see either side 2 disciples standing up. It's a very common way of drawing the Buddha, with 2 disciples, one either side standing up. They're the 2 main disciples of the Buddha. One of those is Shariputra, that's being referred to here. And Shariputra, it says here, then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. So what we're going to see actually in this sutra, and the sutra is the words of the Buddha, actually in this sutra, what we're going to see, most of the sutra is simply a discussion between Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara. Shariputra is asking a question to Avalokiteshvara, and then most of the sutra is Avalokiteshvara responding, answering to Shariputra. But this is a sutra, the words of the Buddha. And what's key here is this statement, through the power of Buddha. So what does this mean, through the power of Buddha? It means that the Buddha, through the power of his concentration, is actually orchestrating this discussion. So he is actually inspiring Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara to have this discussion through the power of his concentration. So that's what it means, through the power of Buddha. So then Shariputra now asks a question to Avalokiteshvara, and he says, how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? So here he says, any son of the lineage. So what does this word lineage here mean? Here the word lineage is talking about, in general, in practice, we can follow different lineages. And of course, here in the Mahayana, we are following the Mahayana lineage to enlightenment. So a son or daughter of the lineage is someone who's aspiring to follow the Mahayana path. And we become a son or daughter of that lineage when we develop great compassion. So when we develop great compassion, wishing to help liberate everyone else from suffering as well, we are a son or daughter of the Mahayana lineage. So this is what Shariputra is asking, is how should anyone who's interested in following the Mahayana path, who's wishing to follow the Mahayana path, how should they practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? Or in other words, if someone who wants to follow the Mahayana path to enlightenment, how are they to practice this wisdom of emptiness? How are they to go about that? So this is what Shariputra's question is all about. Then we see in Avalokiteshvara's reply, which is most of the rest of the sutra, we can actually see here, it's sort of divided up into sections. And Avalokiteshvara's response in how to practice this wisdom of emptiness can be related to the different stages of the Mahayana path to enlightenment. And actually we can see that in your other handout here, the Mahayana path chart, which we're going to look at in a little bit more detail later and tomorrow, particularly next week on Thursday. So we can see here the Mahayana path, the path to enlightenment, is divided into 5 stages here. We see path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of no more learning. So these are 5 stages we go through on our striving for enlightenment. And Avalokiteshvara's reply here is telling us how to practice this wisdom of emptiness at each one of those 5 stages. And the first part of his answer here is talking about how should we practice this wisdom of emptiness on the first 2 stages of the path, path of accumulation, path of preparation. So that is the section that we're going to look at this evening, is how to practice this wisdom of emptiness on the first 2 stages of the path.
May I ask?
Sure.
Is this the full length of the Heart?
The Heart Sutra?
Heart Sutra,
Yes.
It's the full length?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you find actually is that the Heart Sutra plays a very important role in all of the Mahayana traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And often you'll find it, like, I think in the Chinese and the Zen tradition, when they read the Heart Sutra, we've already gone through this prologue, the setting, and then at the end there's a sort of like a rejoicing at the end. You'll find that in the Chinese and the Zen tradition, those are not part, they only recite the core Heart Sutra. Whereas in the Tibetan tradition, you also have the prologue and the conclusion. But this is the full length of the Heart Sutra. It's 25, actually 25 stanzas. It's very short, very brief. That's why it's called the Heart Sutra, the essence.
Okay.
have another question.
Sure.
This idea about calling the Buddha the Bhagavan, I've also heard him called the Tathagata.
Yeah.
So
And that comes up with
there's 3 different names for the same guy.
Well, there's much more than 3.
Okay.
Much more.
Why would you use those 3, or why would you use these 2 here?
You'll find there are many epitaphs for the Buddha, not just Tathagata, Sugata, Jina, Bhagavan. You can probably find a list of 10 or 15. And each one of those has a particular meaning. What we're going to see at the end of the sutra next week, it talks about Tathagata. You use the Tathagata. Tathagata, gata means to go. Tatata is another word for emptiness. So a Tathagata is someone who's gone to emptiness, meaning someone who's completely realized emptiness fully. So a Buddha is someone who's done that. So that's emphasizing that fact. Bhagavan, Bhagavan can be broken into those 2 syllables. Van means to possess, and Bhaga can be understood in terms of what's called fortune or qualities. So Bhagavan is someone who possesses particular qualities, and there's a list of 6 qualities which we won't go into, but often the word Bhagavan can mean someone who's possessing these qualities of a Buddha, and it also can mean someone who's eliminated all the faults as well. So there is etymology with all of this. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So then let's have a look at Avalokiteshvara's reply. So what we're going to be covering this evening is the first part of his reply, which relates to how are we to practice this wisdom of emptiness on the first 2 stages of the path, which actually implicitly is also talking about how are we as beginners, because maybe we're not at even here, you know, maybe we're somewhere back here, you know, and so we might think, oh, well, we're not even anywhere near here yet, so this doesn't apply to us. But actually, the first part of the answer is applying to us as well, because to actually enter the path of accumulation, you have to develop this aspiration called bodhicitta, this aspiration for enlightenment, to a level where it's like something spontaneous within us. So maybe we don't have this spontaneous wish to achieve enlightenment to help others. Maybe we don't have that now, something that we have to work on a little bit. So maybe we're sort of back here somewhere. But actually the instructions that we see now in the Heart Sutra also relates to us as beginners. So it's the very same instruction. So they definitely apply to us. There's a question?
Oh, it's just about, you said, so his reply refers to the 2 first stages.
The first part of the reply, which we're going to look at this evening.
So that's the part of accumulation and the part of preparation. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be looking at this evening. And then the last 3 stages of the path we're looking at next week.
So, something else. So emptiness has nothing to do with enlightenment. It's just a method.
Nothing to do with enlightenment. As we're going to see, emptiness, of course, is saying that everything's empty of inherent existence. And in the Mahayana tradition, if we want to achieve enlightenment, we have to come to realize that directly. If we realize emptiness directly, again and again and again and again and again, eventually we'll wipe out all the ignorance in our mind, and then we'll achieve enlightenment. So someone who's in an enlightened state is realizing emptiness all the time. So that's the relationship between enlightenment and emptiness.
So enlightenment is the emptiness of emptiness.
No, enlightenment is someone who has fully a tathagata, someone who's fully realized emptiness.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does the mind that realizes emptiness, is that same or different from the emptiness that it realizes?
Same or different? Neither. Okay. And we'll hopefully a little bit touch on that point this evening. Okay. So let's have a look at the first part of the answer. So the first part is just a transition from the question to the answer. In the next paragraph it says, he said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this. So Avalokiteshvara is saying, Shariputra, any son or daughter of the lineage, so remember here, a son or daughter of the lineage is someone who's developed great compassion and is aspiring to follow the Mahayana path to enlightenment, someone who has that aspiration. How should they practice this wisdom of emptiness, the perfection of wisdom? So the first part of the answer is the brief answer. And the very brief answer is correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. So here, correctly and repeatedly, actually you can, this word repeatedly can be also translated from Sanskrit as subsequently. So this can also be translated into English is instead of correctly and repeatedly beholding, and it makes more sense to translate it as to subsequently see in a correct way that the 5 aggregates are also empty of inherent nature. So what does it mean to subsequently see in a correct way? It means to subsequently to investigating, we come to realize or we come to see that things are empty of inherent nature. What that implies is that to come to initially realizing emptiness, we have to use reasoning and logic. We have to come to infer that actually things are empty in independent existence. Because emptiness is not something that we can see directly now. So we have to use reasoning and logic to come to correctly infer that, yes, things are empty of inherent existence. They do not exist independently. And so that's what we're going to be doing here in trying to establish this view of emptiness, is use reasoning and logic to really come to correctly see in a correct way that things are empty of inherent nature, empty of inherent existence. And again, here in the answer, it says to behold those 5 aggregates. So remember, the 5 aggregates is simply a way of saying body and mind. The body and mind are also empty of inherent nature, meaning not just the person, but the basis of the person, the body and the mind, also are empty of inherent nature. They do not independently exist. So in the brief answer, it's also indicating the sequence where we should investigate the nature of reality. When we come to investigate the nature of reality, we can investigate anything. We can investigate this cup, the laptop, the body, the mind. But here, what it's implying is that we should start to investigate ourselves as a person. How do I exist? And so we are to use reasoning and logic to come to correctly see, to subsequently see in a correct way that we, the person, do not exist independently. There's no independent me here. So this is what this brief answer is telling us on what to do. And to go into that, we're going to go into that after the break in the most classic statements of the Heart Sutra, in the next sentence where it says, form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. So that's probably the most well-known part of the Heart Sutra. And in there, there's a lot of meaning, and in there it really tells us what this emptiness really means. What does it mean that things are empty of independent nature or independent existence? So what we're going to do now before we stop for a short tea break is, as suggested in the Heart Sutra here, that we begin our investigation in the nature of reality by focusing on ourselves as a person. So what we're going to do now is use reasoning and logic in meditation to come to see, and subsequently in a correct way, that there is no independent me here. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's do a short meditation on that point. So just finding yourself a nice, comfortable posture. So we can begin by allowing your awareness to descend into your body and simply become aware of sensations throughout the body. And if you notice any areas of tightness or tension in any part of the body, then use the out breath to relax and release that tightness or tension. And bring your awareness to the area of your face, softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. Mouth and jaw soft and relaxed. And all the muscles around the eyes soft and relaxed. In this way, allowing your entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And relaxing more deeply with each out breath. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing it to flow naturally and effortlessly. And with each out breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen. Happily releasing them. And simply allow the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Simply becoming aware of sensations of the breath throughout the body. Wherever you most easily notice any sensations associated with the breath. And maintain an ongoing flow of mindfulness on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. Now, do you have a sense that there is a me here who is meditating? A me that does not seem to depend upon anything else to exist. Do you have this experience? This experience of me, the meditator? The me who seems to be here meditating, can this me be found anywhere? Can me, the meditator, be found anywhere within the body? So search thoroughly every part of the body and look for the me who is meditating. Is the me who is meditating to be found somewhere inside the head? Is the brain the me who is meditating? Or is the brain simply something which I possess? Something which me, the meditator, is using? is the whole body itself, is that the me who is meditating? Or is the whole body itself simply something which I possess, something which me, the meditator, is trying to relax? Is me, the meditator, to be found anywhere within the mind? So again, search thoroughly every part of the mind and look for the me who is meditating. Are any of the thoughts, emotions, or memories in the mind, are any of these the me who is meditating? Or are thoughts, emotions, and memories simply things which I possess, things which me, the meditator, has? Is the mind itself the me who is meditating? Or is the mind itself simply something which I possess, something which me, the meditator, is trying to train? Is the combination of the body and the mind, is that the me who is meditating here? Or is the combination of the body and the mind simply two things which I possess, two things which me, the meditator, is trying to train? But apart from the body and the mind, what else is there here? If there's nothing more than the body and the mind here, then where is the me who possesses this body and mind, who's trying to train this body and the mind? Where is the me who's meditating? Even if you didn't find the me who is meditating, isn't there someone who's experiencing all of this? So there is a me here meditating. But just because we don't seem to be able to find it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It simply means it's empty of findable, independent existence. The me who is here meditating is the dependent me, a me that exists depending on the body and the mind, a me that is merely labelled on the basis of the body and the mind. So the dependent me can now finish this meditation and have a cup of tea. So let's take a 15-minute break before we come back and really have a look at this most famous part of the Heart Sutra. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. So we're going to try and unpack the meaning in that for the rest of this evening. So first a cup of tea before we launch into that.